Welcome to Kcse English. This is a new series of episodes that are aimed at supporting digital learning in schools. Specifically, this series of episodes will focus on teaching of Kcse English language. The series will begin by examining the set texts with a view of helping students preparing for Kcse examination enjoy learning literature in English as they prepare for their examinations. We will start this series by bringing to you episodes on John Steinbeck's The Pearl. We will start this first lesson by introducing what a novel is and the elements that make a novel. After this introductory lesson, we will then proceed and embark on the study of John Steinbeck's The Pearl. Let us appreciate what a novel is. According to the English dictionary, a novel is a fictitious prose narrative or tale of considerable length in which characters and actions representative of the life of past and present times are portrayed in a plot of more or less complexity. There are many important points to note from this definition. 1. The novel is fictitious. 2. It is written in prose form. 3. It is a narrative. 4. It comprises of characters. And 5. It is of considerable length. Now let us look at each of these elements before we start the study of The Pearl by John Steinbeck. This definition notes that the novel is fictitious. This means that a novel is a piece of fiction. That is why we refer to novels and short stories as fiction. A novel depicts imaginary characters and situations. It may, however, contain references to real events and people, but this is, in most cases, disguised. However, it is important to note that though its characters and actions are imaginary, they are in some sense representative of real life. These characters and events bear a close resemblance to real life. The definition also tells us that the novel is written in prose form rather than verse. This does not negate the fact that some novels may contain some poetic elements. It is important to note that much of the novel remains in prose form. This means that, as opposed, say, to poetry, the novel is not structured in form of stanzas like poetry. This definition also tells us that the novel is a narrative. The novel is a narrative, and this means that it is in some sense a telling rather than an enactment. This is the aspect that distinguishes it from drama. Again, it must be noted that a novel may contain some dramatic scenes, but these scenes are presented through narration. The definition also tells us that a novel has characters. A novel comprises of characters whose actions are woven in a plot. In actual fact, a novel comprises of people who do things in a given context created by the author. The characters' actions are arranged in a logical order of cause and effect. In other words, the actions of the characters have to be consistent and should be explained in the context of the novel. Finally, this definition tells us that a novel is of a considerable length. Unlike poetry, which can be as short as 2 lines, a novel is defined by the fact that it is of considerable length. This is because a novel focuses on an issue that it investigates in order to arrive at a way of interpreting it. This issue must be of human significance. This means that it requires room to provide details. Bear all these things in mind as we proceed to study John Steinbeck's The Pearl. Let us now briefly look at the elements of a novel. This is important for us as we prepare to study The Pearl by John Steinbeck. Fiction is a product of our inborn desire to tell stories. Each one of us has a story to tell. This is why our ancestors always sat around a fire and told stories. In telling stories, writers make use of certain elements to tell the stories. To interpret a novel such as The Pearl by John Steinbeck, we need to know these elements. These elements are 1. Setting, 2. Plot, 3. Characters, 4. Point of view, 5. Symbols, and 6. Theme. Now, let us look at these elements closely. Setting refers to the place where the story is taking place. While it is true that the world the author creates is imaginary, it shares a close resemblance with our own world. It is important to identify the setting of the story if you have to appreciate the themes. In order to understand the setting, ask yourself this question: could this story be happening anywhere, or could it have happened anywhere? If you understand the setting, it will be possible for you to understand the characters and get to know why they act the way they act. The second element is plot. Plot may be referred to as the sequence of incidents or events of which a story is composed. Plot consists of sequence of related actions. It outlines the conflicts and the clash of ideas, desires, and wills. It enables us to visualize the protagonist's struggle against the antagonists. The conflicts in a novel may be physical, mental, emotional, or moral. As you study the Pearl, take note of the types of conflicts presented. The central character in fiction is called the protagonist, while forces, events, and characters arrayed against him or her are called the antagonists. Plot ensures what is called artistic unity. Artistic unity means that the writer has to ensure that there is nothing in the story that is irrelevant or which does not contribute to the total meaning. The other element of the novel is character. A novel contains characters. In fact, a novel or a story traces the motives, hopes, aspirations of characters. In studying a novel, we need to know the characters very well. To understand a novel like The Pearl, we have to appreciate what various characters stand for and what they mean. In order to understand characters, we look at the following. 1. The physical description of the character in terms of size, color, and general appearance. 2. What the character says about himself or herself and about other issues affecting society. 3. The actions of the character in his or her interaction with other characters in the novel. 4. What other characters say about the character. And finally, the character's thoughts, desires, dreams, and wishes. The other element that we have to remember as we embark on the study of the Pearl is the theme. The theme of a piece of fiction refers to the controlling idea or its central insights. It refers to the generalizations it makes about life that it depicts. A theme is what the author intends to reveal in relation to the subject of the story. In other words, themes are insights of life that the novel exposes to the reader. To understand the theme, it is important to look at the main conflicts. We must ask the question, what is the purpose of the story and what is it all about? The other element is the symbol. It is important to look at the objects and people who have symbolic significance beyond the literal meaning. In the novel The Pearl assumes a symbolic significance which makes it have bigger significance. The other element that we need to bear in mind as we start to study the Pearl is point of view. Point of view refers to the notion of narrative position. The question is, from which point is the story told? A story may be told from 3 different positions. 1. First-person narration. In this instance, The author narrates the story as one of the characters. The author uses the first person pronoun I. In this instance, the author is part of the action that takes place in the story. The second person point of view is also invoked in telling stories. This form of narration brings the reader closer to the text. The author uses the pronoun you in addressing the reader. Finally, the third person narration. This type of narration is sometimes referred to as the eye of God narration. The author refers to the characters in third person using the pronoun she or he, or by their names. The author appears omniscient, knowing the thoughts and feelings of the characters. Having looked at the elements of a novel and having defined what a novel is, I am sure we are now ready to start the study of The Pearl by John Steinbeck. But before we move to that level, we have an assignment for you. Briefly attempt the following task. Pick any of the stories you have read and answer the following questions about it. Who is the author? Who is the main character? What is the theme of the story? State the point of view of the story. And finally, write down the plot of the story. Having looked at the definition of a novel and having examined the elements of a novel, now we are ready to start the study of The Pearl by John Steinbeck. On behalf of my crew, Neka and Pambi, I would like to invite you again and again to this new series called Kcse English. We are going to continue to explore the literary texts that are examinable at Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education. Welcome.